Ever wonder if those gig economy jobs are actually worth it? Like, do people actually make money?
Yeah, it's a question we get all the time.
Well, we're diving deep into that today,
Yeah.
looking at specifically the experience of an Uber driver over in Birmingham, England.
And we've got their review right here, their firsthand account, raw and unfiltered. Should be interesting.
It is really. And spoiler alert, it's not exactly a glowing endorsement for driving with Uber. In fact, this driver's bottom line, basically paying to deliver for Uber.
Wow.
Yeah, so they worked 20 hours, made 60 deliveries, and earned 220 pounds.
Okay, so not amazing, but not terrible at first glance.
Right, and that's what a lot of people think, that it's decent for a side hustle. But then you get to what our driver calls the mileage trap, and things start looking a whole lot different.
Exactly, and this is where so many people get tripped up, They focus only on what they're taking in and completely forget about the hidden costs of constantly driving.
Totally. It's not just about filling up your tank.
Exactly. It's the wear and tear on your car, the maintenance.
Yeah, and don't forget insurance. This driver's insurance skyrocketed by 5 times an extra 180 pounds per month, just for driving for Uber. Come on.
Seriously, at that point, they should at least throw in a free car wash or something, right?
Right. But okay, so let's break down this whole mileage trap thing a little more.
All right, so let's say you're driving 10,000 miles over a year for Uber, which isn't unreasonable for someone doing this regularly. And let's use that £1.20 per mile minimum our driver suggested just to cover basic costs.
Which honestly doesn't even sound like that much when you put it like that.
Right, it sounds almost doable at first. But here's the thing, you have to factor in depreciation, which is basically how much your car's value goes down with every mile you drive. Even if we're being conservative and say it's just £1.40 per mile, well, 10,000 miles times 40p, you've lost 4,000 pounds on your car.
And that's money you'll never see again.
Exactly. Gone. Poof.
It's like you're paying to work, basically.
In a way, yeah.
And speaking of paying to work, this driver mentions all these long, unpaid trips back from the suburbs, after a drop-off. Basically working for free just to get back to where the fares are.
It's a classic gig economy issue, the promise of flexibility, being your own boss. It all sounds great in theory, but often masks the reality of inconsistent pay and zero benefits.
And like, even tips, which a lot of gig workers rely on, aren't cutting it, especially now. Our driver said that flat out. It makes you wonder about the whole sustainability of this model. Can it really work if it depends on customers supplementing worker wages?
It's a big question, right? Are we as a society okay with that? And really, at the end of the day, what does that say about our economy if that's the case?
It's a lot to think about. So, okay, before we wrap up, this driver threw out the idea of a £1.20 per mile minimum just to cover those basic costs we talked about. What do you think? Possible? Pipe dream?
It's definitely a start, something to get the conversation going. Maybe it's time we look at regulations like a minimum wage for gig work or required mileage reimbursement. Or what about platforms having to be more transparent about potential earnings versus expenses up front?
Yeah, transparency would be huge.
Totally. But these are big, complicated issues, and unfortunately, there are no easy answers.
That's for sure. But I think what's most important is that we, as consumers, are aware of this stuff.
Yeah.
It's so easy to just order that takeaway or call a ride without thinking twice.
Absolutely.
But we can't forget there's a real person on the other side of that app, someone working hard, trying to make a living, and dealing with all of these challenges.
Exactly.
So maybe next time you open that app, take a second, think about all this, and maybe even leave a bigger tip. It could make a real difference.
It could, definitely. And even bigger picture, think about how we can better support gig workers and push for fairer compensation. It's on all of us to figure this out.